Greetings. My name is Luis Molina, and I'm the host of the Life Puro podcast. In today's first episode, I talked to Grayhawk Perkins. I met Grayhawk over 20 years ago when I first started my career in the cigar shop business. Grayhawk is a dear mentor to me, but he's more than that. He's a cultural icon, a musician, a storyteller, and we both share the same passion for tobacco. We hope you enjoy today's episode.
I'm going to be laid back on this thing,
You're going to what?
I'm laid back on these things,
I know, absolutely. That's what we want. We want just organic conversation. No real script. You see the notes, but
yeah, I just did
that's for myself.
A radio show with in St. Tammany, and we had a couple of people interviewing me. We were talking, and it got pretty interesting because I'm the kind of guy where if you say something, I'm gonna pick up on it, and I'm gonna bring it a little bit farther, And I had them laughing. They were laughing so hard that they were holding their jaw, They were saying, "We need to get you on more often because it's like it really broke up the tension,
Yeah.
But and I have a reputation of when we're doing movies or documentaries, they have to have a person that sits there and does continuity check because I will play tricks. And we did that documentary on Homa, and the producer and the director had two continuity check people on me, watched me, because you have to get in the right position. And then they cut, and you have to be exactly in that same position, looking the same way when they call action. And so they made sure that I did not do anything funny. Well, I was doing the documentary, and I'm on screen narrator, and we're out in the woods, we're out everywhere, and they're making me stop and all. But they didn't realize that I had, I wear earrings, but for that I had one earring on this side that was real long, and I had one on this side that was real short. And they were watching me like a hawk. And they go cut, and I'd do this, and I'd switch the earrings. So throughout the whole documentary, my earrings were doing this, up and down on each side. And we went to the premiere, and the director and the producer were sitting there. "We made it through. You didn't get us on anything." And I went, "Watch my ears." And they went, "No. What did you do?" I said, "Watch my ears." And we were at WYES Studios. That was where it premiered. And I'm sitting right next to her, and she turns and she looks, she says,
yeah. "Oh, no. You got him.
I gotcha. Well, we had my own, back in the late 80s, early 90s, I had my own Native American production company, my own film crew, and they were all Native. And at the time, Channel 60 out of New Orleans paid for our classes to teach us. I was taught directing and editing and film work and all, and I had 8 people in my crew, and they were all Native American, and so they paid for our education back then, and so we had really the first Native American film crew in Louisiana. And,
wow.
What was so funny, I was at Moundville the last trip, and what's his name, Alex, he's director of Moundville. He says, "I've been looking online, and I found so much on you." But he said, "I found a picture of you that just sold for $250 on eBay." And it was, it was, we were doing a documentary, and it was on Native American traditions, and we had just done a movie, so I was decked out in a 17th century outfit. My face was painted, and the whole works. And they caught me, whoever took the picture, caught me looking in the camera and making sure the shot was good, because I was the director and everything in there. And I'm looking into the camera like this, and somebody snapped that picture, and they said, "The past meets the future." And I'm on the camera checking out the shot, dressed out in 17th century
Whoa.
gear. And it made it to I guess it made it to eBay, and a copy of it, he said sold for $250.
Wow.
And
That was from a movie set you were on?
that was a documentary we were doing,
documentary.
and about Native American powwows and dances and things like that, and we were doing living history and how. So I was dressed out because I was part of it. Besides, I was doing the documentary, and my crew was filming it.
Yeah.
And I went, man, I'd love to see that picture, man. I mean, I would have bought it.
And you still haven't found that picture to this day?
I haven't seen it. He said he showed it to me. Showed the picture. It said sold on it, and I went, oh man, I would have loved to have bought that thing.
Yeah. Oh,
At
well.
least got a copy of it.
Yeah.
Maybe if I look through all my stuff, my files and stuff, I might find pictures of that time. I know we made the front page of a, what is it? What do you call it? Media magazine, and it had me with my whole crew. And we were all decked out because we were being part of it.
Yeah.
And we've got the cameras, we got the mics and the booms and everything, and we're all decked out,
That's cool.
And we made the front cover of this media magazine back in, I think, 91.
So you mentioned powwows.
Yeah.
You're on your way to a powwow. Can you explain to the audience what that means? What's a powwow?
Powwow, okay. Powwow started a long time ago, and it wasn't here. It actually started I guess they by the story that I hear, it started in the Northeast, and as far as the word powwow, but gatherings have been going on forever. But each tribe has their own type of gathering. But the powwow we know today is more like a pan-Indian powwow. You'll see, you'll hear Kiowa dance songs, you'll hear, Cheyenne songs, you'll hear this song, that song, and you'll see dress from all different types of Native American culture. Some very traditional, some of them very new. And it's more of a pan-Indian thing. It's where Native Americans from all different bands or different nations come together, and it's a get together. Myself, I usually don't go to them because it's not part of my culture, really. I'm a stomp dancer, and but to meet my friends from other tribes and all, I'll go and I'll visit. Yeah. And it was funny because we were talking about a couple of months ago, talking about the powwow, and we were doing a podcast with other natives, and I was not going to be talking about powwow. I was going to be talking about other things. And the person that was supposed to be talking about powwow, they asked that person a question, and then I'd raise my hand and I'd answer it. And I knew more about the powwow than I think that person knew. And they go, well, we heard you don't do powwow. I said I don't do powwow. I didn't say I didn't know anything about powwow.
Make that distinction.
Yeah. And I said, because I've been running the Native American area of Jazz Fest. I've been there for almost 40-something years. And for the last 30 years or more, I've been running the Native American area, which we do have people come in and do the powwow. So I have to know about the powwow. I have to know what groups are out there, what are the best groups. I know the dances. I know where they come from, why there's the jingle dress, why is this, what does it mean? A grass dancer, I know what the grass dancer is, or hoop dancer, where it came from, because I've been involved with Jazz Fest as the coordinator for powwows for so long that I've learned everything about powwows. Even when I go to some of these powwows here, they ask me to be a judge, which I'm not a dancer, but I know what it takes to be a dancer, and what it takes to be a good dancer, and what mistakes they make and things like that, because I've been involved with it so long. And I guess, in ways, powwow is good. In other ways, like I always say, I wish that the people that do powwows would learn their own language and their own culture and then do powwows. That way, I have no problem with that. But if you do just strictly powwows and you sing Kiowa and you sing all these other songs and you don't even know your own language or your own culture, that I'm not too happy about. But I will go.
Why is that? Why aren't you happy?
Well, because you're taking a pan-Indian culture and you're letting your culture, your real culture, disappear. Like, okay, if you're Choctaw or you're Creek or whatever, and you don't know how to stomp dance and you know your language, but you can sing a Kiowa song and do that stuff, it's like, wait, something's wrong with that. You let your culture go to pick up somebody else's culture. But I have no problem with the powwow if the people that are doing the powwow also know their own culture, their own dances, and their own language. And some do. Some of them are now doing this, and which makes me happy. So, and I like going to the Tunica powwow because I get to visit with a lot of friends, and the people that are there. A lot of those people do come from their tribe, and they do know their own stuff, and they also do what we call the Pan-Indian thing, which is
What does that mean, by the way? Pan-Indian?
Pan-Indian. That means that it's like a mixture of all different types of Native American stuff coming together. Like you would have one song, okay, one song would be a song where dance is dealing with northern dance, like the jingle dress song from up north. And then you got some that are plains. You got some that are different places, and they put it all together. And I guess it's to show the different dances. But I really would like to see them incorporate, say, the Apache dances or the Northwest dancers, or the stomp dancers or smoke dancers or different things like that incorporated in that. And that's not, I guess there's just a set circuit. It's like one of our announcers said, it's like, what do you call it? How did she say? Like a rodeo. You're going out for prize money. They dance for prize money, and I think that, and a lot of times, is more important than sometimes the traditions are.
I see.
More worried about how much money they're going to make, or they win prize money or whatever, and they don't know their own culture or do their own culture because there's got to be a little money involved in it. And it's not all of them that way, it's just some.
Yeah.
So I take each one, like I go to this one and I go to a lot of others. So powwow doesn't represent all tribes. And I think the outside world don't see that. They see the powwow and they think, oh, that's generic. That's all Indians. We're not generic people. We don't.
There's a lot of variety. I mean,
yeah, we don't
nations.
all practice the same faith or the religion or ceremonies. Like people will come up to me and say, "Do you sweat?" I'm from Louisiana. I sweat every day.
Right.
I don't need a sweat lodge. And we never. I mean, as far as southeastern natives, we've not documented that we ever had sweat lodges. Why? Because we live in an area that you walk outside and you just drench. Where a lot of these places where the sweat lodges were taking place, they're dry, arid places where they don't sweat a lot. So they have to induce the sweating because sweating is part of a purification process. And they always ask why, me being the age I am, my skin is so smooth and all of this stuff. I said, I live in the South, man.
Right.
We moisturize every day,
Yeah, I think about that all the time when I go out to like Las Vegas for our trade shows.
Oh,
You see the
yeah.
locals that live in that dry environment, they age so much
Oh, my
faster. Like the
God.
skin is like leathery.
I had somebody yesterday. I was at an event yesterday, and the lady walks up to me, and she's pretty much the same age as I am. And she goes, "You don't age, man."
Yeah.
It's like, I said, I stay outside a lot, and
Right.
I do sweat, and and you know it's the humid, and
Right.
she's not from here, you know, but she says you don't age.
Right.
And I said a lot of our people that live here, if they live here most of their life, they really don't age, you know, unless they're not living a great lifestyle,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, other factors.
But if
yeah.
they live in a good lifestyle, they really, you know, your skin stays smooth, it doesn't sag.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, she's like, you have the blemishes, you got none of this stuff, and you're almost 70 years old.
I mean, I remember meeting you 20 years that we've known each other. You still look the same.
Yeah, everybody says I look the same.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, my mom's in her 90s, and people think she's in her late 50s, early 60s. She's in her 60s, you know.
Wow.
And but I guess it's also genes too, you know.
Yeah.
But it does have a lot to do with the environment that we're in.
Right. And maybe cigar smoking, maybe?
Oh yeah, I've been doing that since I was like 10.
Right.
It's like,
So, no, I want to get into that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I thought it was so appropriate, and thank you for joining us for our first episode. In fact, my father even brought up to me independently, our first guest has to be Grayhawk. And we thought, both that it's appropriate, given that the Native Americans were the first people in human history to use tobacco.
tobacco,
correct?
yeah.
And you view tobacco,
Hakchuma.
pure tobacco. What's it?
Hakchuma.
Hakchuma.
Hakchuma,
Is the word for tobacco?
For tobacco, yeah.
Now,
For
what
us,
nation are you?
For us.
What
I'm
nation?
Muscogean nation.
Okay.
Southeastern Muscogean. That's Choctaw, Houma, Chickasaw, Alabama, Coshada, Creek, you know, Seminole. That's all Muscogean nation.
Okay. So I thought it was appropriate. So, I have a cigar for us. Feel free if you want to light up. I'm going to light up now. There's no pressure, though.
You're not gonna.
Yeah.
You don't have to twist my arm.
Right.
No, you don't have to.
So I think it's appropriate to, kind of delve into this topic a bit more. Because, you and I think, built this instant kinship with our mutual love and appreciation for pure tobacco.
Oh, God, I remember the first day we met, man.
Yeah.
You know, we hit it off. You
Yeah.
know, we were like, boom, you know.
Right.
Cigar people that way.
That's
I
right.
mean, you know, we're a whole different, you know, when you're dealing with cigars, and I find this out, you know, I mean, Native people, you know, tobacco is very important to us. But I've noticed, and I think that's why I've been drawn to going to cigar shops.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there is a I guess what you call it, a kinship, a bond that you get with people. I mean, you could walk in, and there could be the richest guy and the poorest guy, and they both pulling out these cigars, and before you know it, they're brothers, man. Mm-hmm. You don't care about where they live, you are now cigar brothers, and you don't even think about where they come from, and you become friends forever. And that's happened to me. You know, every place I go in the world, even France, wherever I'm at, I will find a cigar shop, and when I get in there, there's an instant bond with the people in there. I'll pull a cigar out, and before you know it, we start talking, and it's great. Like when I went to France one time, I walked into a cigar shop in Paris, and I had two of the cigars that you made, you know, for me, and a couple of them in my pocket, and the guy looks at it, and he owns the shop, and he goes, asked me to look at them, and I showed him, and they were Daddy Grayhawks, and he says, "Where'd you get that?" And I told him, and he says, "Could I have one?" I handed it to him, and he gave me about 6 or 7 Cubans.
Oh, wow.
Because he can't get those.
Right.
And we bonded, man. I mean, it was great, you know, and I find that everywhere I go, when you walk into a cigar shop, you make friends. And that's, I think that was part of the whole thing with tobacco. It was a friendship thing, you know, and it should be. And it shouldn't be taught as being something horrible, because it wasn't. It was a medicine for us. And so it's good for two people or more to sit down and have a cigar and talk, you know, and so we would get more into the meaning of the smoke and things like that. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna light this.
Yeah.
thing
Don't
up,
let me
man.
hold you up. But while you're getting the cut and light down, that's what we have to face, or at least it's part of my mission statement, to try to educate people of the real benefits of tobacco. And I get why there's this view worldwide that tobacco is evil. And my view is that it's because the cigarette industry really corrupted that, right? And so,
most definitely.
and which, in our view, you and I know this, cigarettes are not the real, like what I call the real way to use tobacco
They're
correctly.
real tobacco.
Yeah, there's no tobacco in it practically. So, like I said, I make it my mission to really educate people on the real benefits of pure tobacco. And, a lot of people make the distinction, but there's still a lot that don't. They want to lump cigars and pipe tobacco with cigarettes. Now you have the vape sector, which is another abomination in my view. But, I'm still of the view that, look, if you want to enjoy that, that's on you.
Well, again, I kind of look at vaping as kind of wimpy smoking.
Right. Right.
It's and then you don't know the what is it, the long range effects of that yet.
This generation, unfortunately, is the guinea pigs for that. We're going to see these ramifications years, decades from now, and it's probably going to go the way that we saw with the cigarette industry, with the big lawsuits, the master settlement agreement that came about. Fortunately, cigars were never part of that, because
never.
A lot of people still make that distinction that we're different. We're in my view more natural, more pure. It's beautiful. I think the benefits outweigh the cost.
Well, I know, like I said, we've got an audience here, but
yeah,
I know people from all different walks of life that smoke cigars. I even know doctors that smoke cigars. A lot of them.
That's right. Yeah.
And but never touched a cigarette. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. And we'll never do that. I tried the pipe for a while, but I don't do that because sometimes pipe tobacco has oils and additives.
Yeah, casings they call it.
To me, I can't do that. It makes me lose my voice. But if I ever lose my voice, all I need is a good cigar, and boom, it comes back.
Wow.
But it's medicine for me.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a beautiful thing, and I thought it was appropriate to have you on to give your impart your view on tobacco and how it was used, especially in your nation, and especially it's viewed as a holy thing, right?
The problem is that the outside world for us destroys a lot of things, because it's funny where the young people now, some of the young people will walk in and hand me tobacco, because that's a tradition. If you walk up to an elder and you don't give tobacco, that's an insult.
Wow.
And now some of the younger people are bringing me tobacco ties and handing it to me, and because they know what it means, they know that it's part of our prayer, they know it's part of our ceremony. But unfortunately, a lot of our people have been brainwashed to think, but again, a lot of these people have gotten away from the pure tobacco, the real tobacco, and they only know cigarettes.
Right.
Because, growing up, all my uncles, I had uncles, from day one, I always had cigars with them. From when I was a little kid, you saw cigars. And then eventually, the generation after my grandpa and all, they started, when they came back from the war and all that, what did they do? They started smoking cigarettes.
It was in vogue back then.
Yeah, it was given to them when they were in war, in packs. And so cigars, became something that, we don't do that. It's the end thing now to smoke a cigarette, because it's in the movies now and this, that, and other thing. I love it when I see an old movie and guys are pulling out cigars.
Yeah, smoking cigars, yeah.
Man, but I remember how cool it was to watch my uncles, pull out the cigar and start smoking the cigar, and they'd go through the motions of what you do when you light up a cigar. They would do their ceremony, and then sit there and do their ceremony, smoke their cigar, and then watch it just go out, and then clip it and save it for later, and then maybe throughout the day, they needed to do a little bit more prayer or a little bit more of this, and they'd light that cigar back up, and you'd see them do that. And I know people watch me when I'm at Jazz Fest or whatever, and they said, you hold that cigar all day long. Yeah. And do you actually smoke? Oh, yeah, I do. When I need it, I'll light it up, and I'll puff it, and it gets me through what I need to get through, and then I go on my way, and eventually cigar goes out. I clip it and I save it, and then throughout I like one at Jazz Fest 2 days smoke one cigar, unless I'm sitting with some more buds,
Right,
and,
right.
But if
Under the tree, huh?
yeah, under the tree in my on my little porch.
Yeah.
But and it's funny because to show you how in cigars are still, and people don't realize how many people are still cigar smokers. I will sit on my front porch at Jazz Fest, me and my buds, and we're smoking cigars, and the guys would come by and, oh God, I smell that,
Yeah.
and where'd you get them cigars? I said, we brought them here ourselves. And they go,
Yeah.
oh man, if we got extras, we'll hand them one.
Right.
But it's funny, I'll be at Jazz Fest and I'll have my cigars. And by the time I leave, I got twice as many cigars than I had when I got there.
Wow.
Because people will come by and they will hand me a cigar and say, hey, brother, and hand me a cigar and friendship. And I'm going, God, that's what it's supposed to be.
Right.
And
that spanned back thousands of years.
thousands of years, And
with your
now, what's funny, even non-natives that come up will, in fact, a couple of guys that work at Jazz Fest, they make sure that they've got quite a few cigars that every time they pass where I'm at, they hand me a cigar.
That's awesome.
And then I'll see them and I'll hand them a cigar. And my friend Tim, he goes, well, you came here with one little humidor. You got 2 bags of cigars now. Yeah. It's like, well, I can't smoke all of them at one, so I wind up giving a lot away,
You get a surplus, That's how it works.
But it's good memories, and it makes me realize that there are still a lot of people that are true cigar smokers that they don't smoke a cigar every day, but they do it because it's something special. Like if they're fishing or if they're out on their back porch or whatever, it's not
celebrating a milestone.
Yeah, milestone. It's like you're a whole different class of person when you're smoking a cigar, and it's neat to be around those guys because they're a whole different attitude. You got to be a certain type of person to respect and smoke a cigar because. It's not like smoking a cigarette where sometimes these guys one after the other because
they're feeding an addiction.
They're very habit forming, and cigars are not. To them it's like a relaxation. It's like I'm with my buds. I like a cigar. It's a I guess we call it rite of passage. It's like
it's a ritual.
You belong to a certain society now.
Right.
And it feels good. And I've seen myself, in the morning, I always get up and I do my ceremony and do what I need to do, clip the cigar, and I'll put it away. And there's times where, I just do that in the morning. But sometimes, like if I'm with you or other friends, I'll smoke a whole cigar, and because we're friends. And we're talking, and
sharing
it's a brotherhood, and that makes me feel like it was 1,000 years ago. That it wasn't a fad, and it wasn't something that you did because it was you're addicted, and because we wasn't addicted to it. It was something that was special. And to me, walking into your shop and sitting in a lounge with other buds, it's something. It's a ceremony, people sitting down and relaxing and getting to know each other, and that's what the pipe and passing the tobacco was. You get to know the other person, you talk, and you take a puff in and you blow that smoke up. That's your words going out to the universe, and if you're lying. That smoke goes up to the universe. If you're lying to that person, you don't have to deal with that person. You got to deal with the universe because there's a higher power to us, the universe. Mm-hmm. And that smoke represents your words coming out, and they should be pure. And if they're not, something's
Yeah, it's something about, especially in lounges that are communal. You get, like you've alluded to, different people from different walks of life, and this cigar is the equalizer.
Oh yeah, nobody asks you
Yeah,
where
yeah.
are you a doctor, are you a
Politics are
lawyer?
set
No
aside,
politics.
gender,
Oh
race,
yeah.
everything. This is the common denominator, and to me, that's beautiful. It's very almost, I guess, call it democratic or just equal.
Oh yeah. Oh, they'll say, "Hey, what cigar are you smoking?
Yeah, yeah,
And how you like that one? I'm gonna try that one
yeah.
next." Or you go,
Right,
they
right.
go, "I'm not gonna try that one. Why don't you try this one?" And I'll try it. And
Now, do you remember what brands your uncle smoked when you were growing up?
oh my
Or
God.
they didn't hand roll their own, or did they just buy?
He bought. I mean, I saw everything from what do you call it, Dutch Masters to you name it, white, whatever. Whatever was at the local mom and pop store
Yeah.
that was in the box at the time.
Keep movings?
All of them, man.
Yeah, keep movings, yeah.
And
El
my
Trellis?
uncle was telling me a story, and this happened a long time ago. We were getting Cubans, and a lot of my people were on the coast of Louisiana, and guys that would come from Cuba would come up and they would trade.
Oh,
And
cool.
so all of a sudden, he said, one of my uncles, he's passed away now, but he said they would come and they would trade some of the things that we have here from Cuba. And they would leave tons of Cuban cigars. And they were always wondering why all the tribes on the coast were smoking
Oh,
Cuban
man.
cigars, man. It's
Whoa.
like because we were trading,
Yeah.
and that was funny because that made me realize how long we've been connected to Central and South America, and we've been trading, and tobacco was part of that.
Yeah. Tobacco was the commodity that built this country, post Columbus.
Oh yeah.
Was the cash crop that built this country's economy. People forget that.
Oh yeah.
And yet you have some people that want to like kind of put that under the rug and, erase that from history.
Well, think about this, man. The boxes back in the 1700s and going into the 1800s, if you had tobacco, they had locks on those boxes. That's how valuable tobacco was. That you had boxes with your tea, they were locked. Your tobacco, they were locked. That was the two commodities, man. Think about the Boston Tea Party, think
That's
about
right.
tobacco, and all. Those were the two things that made cultures, I guess what you call it, rich.
The Europeans thrived on
yeah.
it. The Dutch were Dutch masters as a
Dutch
tribute to
masters, yeah.
that group that really, I guess, from a European viewpoint, used tobacco successfully to enrich themselves.
Well, everything from that to snuff. I mean,
Oh, yeah, snuff.
they locked it all up, man. I mean,
Have you ever done snuff?
I tried it once.
Yeah, I did too.
Cleared up my sinuses.
Yeah.
I tell you that.
Yeah, I can't do that. Yeah.
No, it's not something I would get into, but some people do, and I didn't get into that. But
I don't even think we have any SKU that's snuff related. That's pretty much
you
dead.
don't see it anymore. You
Yeah.
know.
But at one point, they even had snuff boxes
Snuff
that were
boxes.
in vogue
Oh yeah,
to store the snuff powder.
that's it, and they sniff it, and
Right.
whew, you
Yeah.
know. But I mean, that was, a quick fix.
Yeah. But I don't view that as pure necessarily.
No, it wasn't.
The way to
It
consume
was-
tobacco.
It was,
Almost like a cigarette.
yeah, it's almost like that. It had additives in it too.
Oh.
Some of them did,
Oh.
but thinking about, and I have a couple of antique tobacco boxes, and they have keys on them, and they've got compartments because you didn't mix the tobaccos. And the same thing with tea. You had compartments, and you had a center. It was so funny the way that was because, and I think the tobacco was the same way when they were starting to use the pipe tobacco. If you look at the old tea boxes, you had different types of teas. You have like 4 compartments, and in the middle, it was almost like a bowl, and they would mix and make a special. They would make their own blend.
Oh, cool.
And then they'd lock that thing up. But you had different
You
types.
had the base portions of each.
Yeah, you had different
tea
types
type.
of teas in there, and the same thing with some of the tobacco boxes. You had different types of tobacco, they were isolated from each other, and then there was a center of it that they would do the mixing and mix it up, put in their pipes, you know.
Almost like a chef. He
Yeah,
has his ingredients
same
separate,
thing.
and then they would put it
hey,
together
just
to
like
create it with
the
dish.
Grayhawk tea, you know, same
Yeah,
thing. The tobaccos, you have certain blends,
Yeah.
you know, and it was I guess you would say a science too, you know.
Yeah.
But you had certain things that you liked, and that's the way. And like I said, anybody that gets a chance to look up tea boxes and tobacco boxes from the 1800s, look them up. You can still buy them online, antique ones, and you'll
There's
see.
a market, huh?
Yeah, and because people collect it, and it was that special, you know. And people don't realize that, you know. Unfortunately, the 1930s and 40s messed up tobacco because of cigarettes became popular. You know, who wants to smoke a paper? Who wants to smoke glue? You know, that's what it was. They did something that they could mass produce, and get out there, and you can't do that with cigars. You know, especially back then, a lot of those cigar companies didn't have machines. Everything was hand rolled.
Yeah, even like the Dutch masters you mentioned, at one point they were hand rolled.
They were all
like a
hand
lot of
rolled.
the cigars we consider, in our industry we call the mass market cigars.
Yeah.
Basically the machine made cigars.
Yeah.
They were a lot of them were handmade.
A lot of them were hand rolled.
We used to sell some vintage, I think they were white owls.
Yeah, and they were hand rolled.
And they were the hand rolled variety.
Dutch Masters. What is it? Okay, there's a whole bunch. And back then, you know, you could buy them.
Phillies too. Remember Phillies?
Yeah, Phillies. Yeah, Phillies.
That was we sold some handmade.
And
I think from the 30s.
They were hand rolled until probably the late 50s.
Okay.
You know, because in the 50s when they were announced, they would show it on the different programs. They would say, get a Philly hand rolled. You get that. But as you got out of the 50s into the 60s, it started changing a little bit, you know. But and then now they sell what they call wannabe cigars now, you know, and like Swisher Sweets and things like that, you know. But everybody, I smoke a cigar, you know. I go, what do you smoke? Swisher Sweet. I go, oh God, that ain't a cigar, man.
Yeah.
Get a real cigar. Be a man, you know. But what's funny is that in our culture, it was not just men. Men and women smoked tobacco.
Right.
You know, it was, you know, in this society, it was like, you know, well, cigarettes, women and men smoke cigarettes. But now you start to see a lot of women going back smoking cigars.
In this country.
In this country, yeah.
Because in Latin America, where the cigars are made, there's no stigma about females smoking cigars. In fact, they've always been valued in our industry because of their capacity to gently handle the tobacco as they're rolling or sorting the leaf. So down there, it's great when I visit these factories. The women are smoking cigars while rolling. It's beautiful. But in this country, unfortunately, it's for a while, it's been seen only as a male activity.
It was funny. We were sitting on my front porch at Jazz Fest, and my tribal chief, which is a woman, my cousin, we're sitting on the front porch with her fiance, me, and we're all smoking cigars.
That's awesome.
And she's up there smoking a cigar with us, you know?
That.
And it's like, wow, okay, that's tradition.
That's it.
Man. That's tradition.
Yep. Tobacco transcends gender.
It does.
Race and all these other
Well,
factors.
you know, and there's a rite of passage. You know, I didn't smoke my first cigar until I was like 10. And and it's another thing, you know, you get to the point where you use tobacco in ceremony. You have to use it. You make tobacco ties as offerings. You use tobacco when you sprinkle tobacco on the land to show you are at one with the earth. And if you cut your cigar, you take and you rub it down and you put it back into the earth as an offering, you know. And so it is. It's very, and you know, it's a medicine. I mean, think about this. You know, it pulls out infections.
I remember you telling me a story with the wasp when you
God.
were in the state parks. Can you tell me that story again?
I got nailed by I don't know how many wasps got me, you know, and I had a cigar in my pocket, and we took that thing, cut it in half, we put it in water, and we covered every one of my bee stings. because they counted almost 40 bee stings,
Whoa.
and I was covered, and we put tobacco on all those bee stings, and I was fine. I was fine, unless you're really definitely allergic to bee stings. But and I think we were doing a summer camp, and some kids accidentally stepped in a hornet's nest.
Oh man.
And a yellow jacket nest, and got hit. And the only ones I was able to do was the ones I knew their parents would be okay with it, and cut the T-shirt up and wrapped it, and all. And when the parents came, the ones that I knew, it was just a little pink thing.
Wow.
The other ones had to go to the doctor because I couldn't do it.
Right. Yeah, you didn't want to upset, the parental oversight.
But I knew that these people
it had
would
benefits.
be fine.
Yeah.
Plus, my grandson was with us, and so again, you can't do that. In this society, you can't use it as a medicine because everybody goes, "Oh no,"
Right.
because
again, cigarettes corrupted that.
It's all thrown into one big lump, and but with us, like I said, even talking like this, if anybody it's anti-cigar or cigarettes would be listening, oh no, that's not right. But hey, I grew up with it. I know it works and what doesn't work.
Right.
But I also have to do a disclaimer. Don't do anything I'm telling you to do in here because I'm just saying this is what I do. Not what
That's your belief.
Not what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And you as a native person that knows herbs and medicines and all, you never tell anybody, do this, because you can't. You can say, this is what I do, and leave it at that. Don't ever say, oh, you do this. Don't do that. I'm not telling anybody in here to pick up a cigar. I'm just telling you this is what I do. Because of today's society, everybody gets all upset and they get bent out of shape and they want to sue, they want to do this, they want to do that. And so you do your thing, and that's what I do. I don't ever tell anybody, oh, you got to smoke a cigar.
Right.
No,
yeah, it's good for you. Yeah, you can't say that.
I can't say that, because, maybe it's not good for everybody. But also, they don't have the same frame of mind. Plus, they're not using the same tobaccos or whatever,
Right.
And so you have to be real careful about that. But, as we're talking about history, for us, yeah, tobacco is very, very important. It's very sacred. And it's funny because I always know when I'm out in the sun and I get the right color, I match my cigar.
What? Oh, nice.
It's funny because they laugh. They go, all right, which cigar are you smoking? I said, well, I put my arm up and that one right there. That's the one that matches my skin color.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we do the same thing with the earth. As a native, we walk up to the earth and we go, yeah, that's where I come from, because we're the same color as the earth that we're at,
Wow.
And my cigars, when I get to a certain tan that I get, I usually match the cigar.
Come on.
You can't tell my fingers from the cigar.
As you and I know both, that cigars come in a wide variety of colors.
Oh, they do.
From the blonde shade to the Colorado brown to the Oscuro, like almost black.
Oh, I've gotten to the Maduros, real dark ones, and I go, I think that's a little bit dark for me, but I have gotten that dark. It's like, I've gotten that dark, but usually it's that natural copper tone color, that reddish.
Sounds healthy.
Yeah, real nice color, and they all laugh. So that's when I know I got the cigar I'm supposed to be smoking. It's the same color as my skin.
Yeah, that's cool. I in researching tobacco, because you know me, I'm just a sponge when it comes to absorbing anything tobacco related history. In terms of history, I heard that, and if you want to provide your insight, supposedly tobacco as a plant, the ancestral home, the origin was from Peru.
through yet.
Have you heard? Do you agree with that?
Well,
Or what can you provide
I
to that? And
think
I don't know if there's any way
I
to
know
verify that.
some of the old strains are from Peru, but we've had tobacco for a long time too.
Right.
And it is part of our culture. In fact, there are pipes that date back through the mounds, which are 12 to 2,000 years. And they find our pipes were was funny to you when you think of a pipe. You think of the peace pipe these guys smoked. Well, they didn't look like that. Some of them look like cigar holders. If you look, what's really cool, they made a great chart because they've gone to a lot of historic sites, mounds, and they found different pipes, clay pipes. In fact, I've got one in a car. I'll show you.
Man.
And it's an old one.
Yeah.
That one's only about 800 years old. But,
Only?
Oh, yeah.
Gee whiz.
And it was given to me. And it does fit a cigar perfect. It's really funny because at a certain cigar will fit right into that bowl perfectly.
Wow.
And people have taken pictures of me smoking a cigar in that pipe, and talk about a great draw, man. It was just great. But some of them are just straight, where the tobacco was rolled and put at the end, like a cigar. And I need to get one of those charts for you. It shows you the different styles of pipes that we used here in the Southeast.
Oh yeah, I'd like to get that. We'd frame it up.
In fact, I'm going to be at a place that I could probably get one. If I'm going to, I'll get you one of those charts.
Cool.
And it shows you all that. It's not the peace pipe that people see in the movies. These are a lot older. And like the one that I got, it's funny because the person that made it, his fingerprints are still in the clay. And it was in a site that my people come from. And so it was somebody in my family over 800 years ago that made that pipe, and his fingerprints still stuck in that. You could see in the pipe when he made it, one of his fingerprints was still in the clay.
Wow. That's so cool because you smoking from that, you're like transcending, like connecting.
Oh, definitely.
How many generations ago?
We used that pipe, and we did a documentary called Hidden Nations, and they were wanting to use a pipe, and I happened to have it with me. So in the documentary, the guy that was portraying one of our chiefs, I handed him that pipe, and it's in the documentary, and it just, you can see it's great. It's got a face carved in the front of it, and it was used to show that that's the type of pipe was used here. It wasn't that one with the long stem and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
But there were many different types.
Yeah. And this goes back to trying to educate, especially the anti-tobacco folk, which I get. I understand their concern, but this is not what you've been brainwashed to think.
Yeah, it's.
But again, disclaimer. I mean, look, there are benefits and there are risks.
Well, they're everything.
With everything else.
My grandfather used to say, anything in moderation. You can't sit there and 24 hours a day do something. You can't sit there 24 hours a day and smoke, and figure nothing's going to happen to you. You same thing with drinking Cokes or drinking coffee. You drink coffee 24 hours a day, that's going to be an effect to you. But in moderation, everything's all right in moderation. But people don't know moderation sometimes. They don't know when to hold back, And,
it's respect.
It's like food, in moderation, it's good. Overindulging, it's not good, So, but with me, it's the cigar. It's special. It's prayer. It's a ceremony for me, and it's. If you look at it compared to most cigar smokers, it's moderation for me. I mean, it's not something I'm going to abuse because we're not supposed to abuse it. And like the guys that come here, and the people that come here, the men and women that come here, they come here to it's like a ceremony. They come.
A personal ritual.
They come here, they sit down, and they do that, and they might not touch another one till they come back the next week and sit down again. You know, it's a ritual, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, guys that and I know people that like my uncles that always had a cigar in their hand, but I always noticed that cigar half the time it wasn't lit.
Oh.
You know, it was like either they were holding it in their mouth, they're holding it in their finger, they lay it down, and I noticed that. I noticed that it wasn't something that they just sat down and just hurried up and smoked it. It was something that they did leisurely. They did it, you know, and they sit there and they sit down for a minute and they go, huh, pull out their matches and light it again and sit there for a little while and then put their cigar down and go do their thing again.
Yeah.
Then come back maybe a couple hours later, pick it up, light it up again, you know. It's like you don't do that with cigarettes. Don't do it. Don't do that. Don't do that with a lot of things. And I think again, watching them made me realize that there was more to that. And then as I got older and started learning the meaning and the symbolism behind the tobacco, my uncles and all were doing a tradition, you know, and it's the same thing that I do, you know, and like I said, that you know, again, it's you have to have that mindset, you know, and that it is sacred, it is something that's special, and I think if you think of it that way, you won't abuse it.
Right.
You
Show
know?
reverence for
You
it.
show reverence to it, you know.
Do you want to talk about the smoke reading and
Oh
how you use
my
it?
God! Yeah,
You don't have to.
yeah, we can do that. You can do it.
I've always been fascinated by that. And I guess if you don't mind, you don't have to. But to me, that's so just really interesting how you use tobacco. Because I used to remember collect some leaves for you, or,
right, right.
you know, cigars that you would use for the smoke reading.
Well, in our culture, the smoke is very important. Like there's a song that I
I
wrote.
know,
It's
yeah.
called Pisa e Subli.
I was humming that this morning,
Watch,
by the way.
watch the smoke
Yeah.
because it'll talk to you. It'll tell you things. And being a smoke reader, it's got to be taught. It's not something that just happens automatically. You have to be able to know how to read that smoke and see what's in that smoke. And I've had friends of mine that watched me do that, and it took pictures. And I'm like, look over, and they said, "Oh yeah, it's fine. You do it." And took it from two different angles, and saw an image from one angle and the other, and it was the same. You could see it was like three dimensional, and I could see they could see the image in that smoke, and it stayed there. Um, and again, it's something that you know you have to be taught. It's something that just doesn't have to come natural, I guess. You do have to have it in you, you know, for an elder to teach you. They got to know that you know you have I guess, something special that you can do that. And I don't know a lot of people that still do it. I might be the last one. I don't know, you know, at least know in my area, you know, that, where you walk into a place and you know a good friend of mine, Mac, called me up, come to my house. I want you to check my house out and go in and do a smoke reading and watch the things and watch where the smoke went. And it was really interesting because it would go to something that he just brought back home, which I knew nothing about. And he said, something's not right here. And I would blow the smoke and it form a ball in the middle of the room. Then all of a sudden it started moving and it went over to wherever it was. And I go, whatever's bothering you is right there. And he said, God, I just said it was in my bag. And he opens it up. And it's something he just brought from somewhere else. And it had this negative energy in it. And that smoke went straight to it, man. You know, and it's like, I can't explain it. You know, it's something that I've watched, you know, my grandmother do things that with medicines. And I go, it's hard to explain. You know, when she did this, it's like, how does that happen? You know, where she cut into somebody's hair and into a willow tree, and they had an asthma attack, they couldn't breathe, and all of a sudden she cut their hair, put their back to it, cut their hair, and all of a sudden they could breathe. and never have that problem anymore. And I sit there and go, wow, how did that happen? Can't explain it.
Yeah.
Same thing with smoke reading. Sometimes it just happens. You can't explain it. But if I sat down and wrote down everything that I've ever done with doing a smoke reading, it would make a great book. Because that's stuff that not only have I seen, but the people I was with that can testify and say, God, I saw that. You know, and so yeah, tobacco they only use tobacco for that, for smoke reading, you know. For cleansing, you use cedar. And then if you want a strong cleansing, you put some tobacco in with that cedar, man, and it just takes off.
Wow.
For cleansing, you know. So, you know, and that's just me.
Right.
You know, I'm native. I'm a Muskogean person, you know, and it's not for everybody, you know. And I always tell people, you know, look back in your culture and your history and see what your people did, because not everything that I do is for you. You know, it's for me because it's handed down to me. It's from part of my culture. But your ancestors might have done something totally different,
Right.
you know, and maybe it won't work for you, you know. But
No, I always found that fascinating. And then just the stories you would tell over the years of some of your people's stories that they would tell you.
oh my God, yeah,
I still think about some of these stories. It gives me goosebumps.
yeah, it's
Like the owl.
the owl,
the
yeah,
owl.
owls and crows, and
Yeah.
a lot of different things,
That's cool.
you know.
Because you've always been into, like, I love your like what you're wearing, the rings. And,
Yeah,
yeah.
that keeps me real.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody asks me about the rings.
Yeah.
And, I go, number one, that's what I'm going to be one day, and that's the guy that's come get me. If you notice the rings,
Oh. Yeah.
Ishtahola. Yeah,
Wow.
we y'all call it the Grim Reaper. We
The Grim
call it
Reaper.
Ishtahola.
Ishtahola?
Ishtahola. There's a great story about that. It's online. If anybody wants to read the
Yeah, yeah.
Ishtahola, get the Ishtahola story. Pull up Grayhawk on YouTube and find storytelling with Grayhawk at Moundville, and you will see the best version of the Ishtahola story, because they filmed it in black and white and on top of a mound, and you cannot see my eyes at all when I'm telling that story.
Oh, man.
And the lady that filmed it said when she edited it out, and she was in the dark room, and she said it freaked her out just watching me tell that story.
Whoa.
She went, "Whoa!"
No, I'm going to Google that afterwards.
Yeah, and I did one in broad daylight about Easterhola and for News with a Twist out of New Orleans for Halloween. And the lady the producer, I did it in the studio. Well, I did it outside first, and then she was sitting in broad daylight with me. She said it just blew her mind, you know. And but that's an old story, you know, and that's what I do, you know.
Yeah.
Collect the old stories and keep them going.
And you probably still to this day tell stories at like functions.
I just did
when you were a teacher.
Yeah, and well, I last year, I think, yeah, at least last year, it would have been last year, the governor's lieutenant governor's office gave me an honor of being called one of the 6 cultural bearers for the state of Louisiana, and that was part of it. Not only my music, but my storytelling and my writing.
Oh, that's cool.
And I just did a whole thing for the Library of Congress. Just, God, not even a little over a month ago. And they sat down and they filmed some of my stories, but then they went and took pictures of some of the buildings that I built and that are traditional, date back 1,000, 2,000 years ago. And so it's cool, you know, to be finally, you know, I think people starting to take notice and saying, hey, we don't want, we know you're getting up in age, and we want to get these things before you croak, you know, and so I've got, you know, years and years and years of this life of just picking up things. And now most of the people that I learned from, they're gone. And so, you know, a lot of the younger people are coming up to me. We know this story. Can you tell us the story? Because we know you know the whole story. And, you know, there are stories about the tobacco, and there are stories about, you know, us coming out of the earth, and a lot of the other stories, and about the owl and about the crow and all the alligator and things and all. And, you know, that, because in our culture, every person has a characteristic of a certain animal. And if you sit down and watch that person long enough, you're going to figure out what animal he's most like.
Huh.
You know, and I'll describe one, and you tell me if you know anybody like this. This animal, very very self-centered and greedy. Um, basically, very, very nearsighted. Doesn't see beyond the nose of his face. And most people don't think of that animal when they think of, when I say this. In the outside world, they call it meek as a mouse. In the Native American culture, when you go, no, arrogant and greedy as a mouse, cannot see beyond the nose of their face. And there are people like that are very arrogant, they're very greedy, and they can't see beyond the nose of their face. And that's a mouse person. We see what the animal does, not what it looks like.
Oh.
You know, and so I have a list. I'm doing a new book, and in that book, I've got all these stories. But on the back of the book is going to be all the animals and what they mean and their characteristics, so people can figure out who they are.
Oh boy.
You know, and what animal they most resemble. That's why Native Americans have, like my name, Grayhawk, means something. Gray in our culture means wisdom. And hawk means a person that sees far and sees close. That means that it's a person, like a hawk can see very far, but man, down close, it's just as good. And it means if you're a hawk person, you're a person that sees what they need that's around them today and does the things today that will affect them in the future. Okay, so if you're like a kid and you're in the third grade and you want to get to the fourth grade, you need to do the things you need to do right now that are going to get you to the fourth grade. And the same thing with a person, an adult. You need to do things right now. If you want to be successful, if you want to accomplish goals and things like that, you need to see what's around you. You need to figure out what you need to do right now that's going to get you to where you need to get to in the future. If you can't see what's going on around you right now, there's no way you're going to reach that in the future. You know, you need to see what actions you're doing now that are going to affect you in the future in a good way. And a lot of people don't think that way. They only know what's going on right now. They don't think about the future.
So generations ago, when your people, when do they name their child? At birth? Do they know intrinsically what their talent, what their characteristics?
Got many names. Okay, you get a name when you're born, but then you get another name when you become an adult.
And your traits,
because they watch you and they see you and they see what you're becoming, and then you're given another name. You might keep the old name, get that one added, and then you might gain another name from an elder that passes on because you've got to keep their name going on. So, say for instance, my name would be Andres Tiashlobianake Abibioa. That means, and that means steadfast, means like a rock. That's the name you're given when you're at birth. They want you to be strong, steadfast, or whatever. And in my case, it was be hard-headed, you know. Yeah. But then you get the next name, which is Tiashlobianake, which means Grayhawk. And they see that you're a person that picks up all the information he needs and that he's going to need in the future to help him along. And that's a hawk. Okay? And you've got the gray, which means wisdom. You use wisdom with all of those things. So that was given to me when I was young. And then my grandfather's name was Abi. And Abi, Bio, it means Bio, or Bio, or Bio means bayou, and Abi means hunter or killer. It means a provider. and that was his name. So boom, 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 boom. You've earned these names, and you got to live up to these names. And if you don't live up to these names, they can be taken away from you. Or sometimes, if you don't live up to it, you take your name away from yourself until you earn it back. You know, so your name gives you a goal, what you need to achieve and stay at. So if your name is, Mouse, that means somebody saw that you're a mouse person, and if you don't want to be a mouse person, you got to change your attitude. You got to change the type of person you are so you can get a new name. You know, and so sometimes the names could be very positive. Sometimes they could be negative to show you this is what you need to do to improve if you want to get your name changed. So throughout your life, your name could change or things could be added. And and it doesn't happen overnight. You just can't walk up the spine and say, your name is now Running Bear, Well, that person doesn't know you. They haven't been around you for years and years. And now to do that, if they just met you and they say your name's Running Bear, that's not your name. It just sounds cool. They have to really work at looking at you, studying you, seeing what kind of person you are, and then they will give you the name that they feel that you deserve. And sometimes it works really like with me. A few elders gave me my name, and they saw that in me. They agreed that that's who he is. So it was nothing. It was funny that when I was given that name that it just stuck. At first I didn't feel that I earned it. I knew I deserved it. Then one day I went, you know what? I am that Grayhawk. I am that person. And before you know it, the old name doesn't even exist. The first name doesn't even exist. They only know you as that name now because that's who you became. You became the name that was given to you. And somebody asked me, do you feel that you have changed? And I said, sometimes I do. Sometimes I think I'm an orange rabbit.
What does that mean?
Orange is a person that's sees every day as a new beginning, but very energetic. And the rabbit is a trickster.
Oh,
I feel like a trickster sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like I'm a trickster that sees every day as a new opportunity and a new start, and everybody a new victim. It's like, but I'm not. I thought of doing that one day, so I'll change my name to Orange Rabbit and just freak everybody out. But no, I'm still that Grayhawk.
Wow, that concept of a person living up to their family name. It's almost universal, but it sounds like your people really.
Yeah, it's like I always tell people, I always tell kids when I'm doing a lecture, I says, find out what your name means. You never know what kind of trick your mom and dad pulled on you.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, because you might go, whoa, that's what my name means. Sometimes those names do fit the person. But I think we've gotten away from that. Yeah. We've gotten away from, it's just, if the name sounds cool, we'll give it to the kid.
Yeah.
Well, what does that name mean? What does it mean? What are you setting your child up for?
Wow.
Because if you give that child a certain name and it is a negative name, you just set that child up. When they eventually find out what that name means, they go, what? That's what they thought of me? And so I think every person that has a child before, and that's why a lot of times Native American people do not name their child the minute they're born. They wait for a while, and then they look at that child for a while, and they go, wow, I see something in that child. So Andres means steadfast. It means like a rock. Also means hard at it, So they pegged me, It was like
they knew.
And I think every person out there, if you're having a child, don't give that name because it sounds cool. Do research, watch your child for a while, and see how that child's acting. See the reaction, things that are going on, because you can see it from birth. What's going on with that child? You can see in its eyes. You can see the way it's acting. You can see the way it's relating to you and things around them, and you go, wow. Let me give that child that name, because that's who that child is, or that's who I want that child to be, and or you give that child a name that you want them to be. Something that's very positive, something that you see in them that you say, hey, I want them to be like that, so I'm going to give them that name. They might, like you said, like when I got older, it changed, or it was added. They saw something else in me as I got older. And so name's not just something lightly to be taken,
Right.
taken lightly, you know. Even like, you think about the Europeans, they call somebody Cooper. Well, why are they called a Cooper? Because they made barrels.
They identified
Yeah,
people's names with their occupation.
with their occupation, and what they became, or what their family is. They were Coopers, they were Smiths, blacksmiths. They were this, that, and that thing. And it's like, and what did that usually happen? That child fell right in with what their father was doing. And so that's not too far off of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so, look at your last name. Like my last name, my European last name is Perkins. It means son of Peter. In my eyes, I think Peter Pan because I ain't never gonna grow up.
Yeah.
But yeah, look at your name. Look at what
That's
it
funny,
means.
That's funny you mentioned that because you see this. This
Yeah.
is our family crest. I got this in one of my trips to Spain.
Oh, cool.
So Molina, it's I guess the feminine of molino,
Yeah.
which that means mill. Now that could have been windmill or like a I guess a stone mill.
A millwright, yeah.
Yeah. So and this
Well,
represents
that's
that
what it
mill.
looks like. That's what it looks like.
But then they attributed the castle. But I still need to learn more about what that means.
Even though you think about how far back that's dated, whatever they would have made that mill, that's what it would look like.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been with that material.
Yeah.
We need to stop thinking about the 20th century when we're talking about our ancestors, because we need to think about what's going on back then. What materials were being used, what styles were being used, and all. If you go and you've been to Europe, I've been all over France and Europe, and stayed in some places. Man, I'm sitting there and I'm looking up at the building I'm in. I don't think I stayed in a building that was anything younger than 14th century. Most of the buildings I stayed in were very old. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, and I'm looking up at the beams, and you can see the axe marks on them from them making the beams, and think about, my God, 14th century, who made that? And then I start thinking about my people. My grandfather was a boat builder. He was a cabinet maker. Boom. I'm looking at the work up there, and I'm doing some of the same things.
Yeah, you're doing that too, huh?
Now I'm doing exactly what my grandfather and his father. My grandfather was a blacksmith. And I've done ironwork. And it's like, wow, without even thinking about it, I'm thinking, I'm doing.
It's in your blood.
Yeah, and then I think about Peter Perkins. He traveled and he talked and he went to all these places. He met Charles Dickens. He did all this stuff. And I'm thinking, dude, that's me. And then he connected with Charles Dickens. And then I was in France, realizing I was sitting in some of the same places Dickens was sat when he did it. In fact, my itinerary was very close to Dickens' itinerary when he went through France, went to Spain.
What?
And I went, wow, because I was reading the book. I was in a villa reading the book about Dickens, and it talked about Peter Pitchlin. He met him when he was in the 1840s when he came to America. And I'm thinking, I'm sitting here reading in a place that Dickens sat in probably, and I'm looking at the itinerary, and it's almost identical to what I'm doing today. And I said, that wasn't a coincidence.
Right. That can't.
That can't be. And now
it's like the energies of the universe.
Yeah, and he was a statesman. Peter was a statesman. He was a speaker. He was a leader, and he liked dressing fine and the whole thing. And I was going, dude, man. I'm thinking, without even thinking, I'm doing the same things that all my ancestors did. Because I've made that. I've got that connection. I didn't pull myself away from my culture or who I am. I allowed that spirit to be still in me, and I think about Dickens and my grandfather smoking a cigar together, man.
Yeah.
That's like, because it's so funny. I've got a picture of me in the villa, and what do I have? I've got my book that I'm reading about Dickens. I've got a cigar sitting right there next to it. I got a great picture of that, and I'm in a villa that's made in the 15th century.
That's
You
so cool.
know, and there's this the Dickens book, nice old chair, and there's my cigar sitting right there. And I don't think there's a place that they took a picture of me in Europe that I didn't have a cigar in my hand or
Yeah.
one in the ashtray right in front of me at a cafe. You know,
Do you remember if were their ashtrays like when I go to Spain? Their ashtrays are very distinct. Usually like stainless steel, and they have this cover. But so it's like a bowl, I guess, but it has a cover, and then there's water inside of it. So when you're done, you lift the top and you just extinguish. Did they do that in France?
No, they didn't do it in
Yeah,
France.
okay.
They got ceramic ones in France.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Wow.
usually I brought my own.
Okay.
In fact, it was funny. I got a really cool. I was in Paris, and a lady that was traveling with me. She was from France, and she went into an antique shop, and she came out with this brass. It looked like a part of a wing, and it was made to hold a cigar. And I got it in my car,
Oh man.
and she comes out and she's got it behind her back, and she says, "I got this for you." And I went, "Whoa, check that out! It fits in my pocket."
Oh wow.
But
Convenient.
it looks like an angel's wing, or a wing, and at the end it's got the intention for the cigar to sit right in it. And she said it was from the 1800s, and she bought it in an antique shop. She saw it and she said, "That's Grayhawk," and she brought it and gave it to me. I've lost it a couple of times and it showed up.
Yeah.
It shows back up. But I keep it in my car because I keep my cigar in it in my car.
That's awesome.
But,
Do you want to talk about 13 Moons? Wasn't that a project you
that
did
was a project
in
I did in France. The album was actually I'd been hospitalized and was pretty bad off, I guess, back then. And when I came out of the operating room and realized I didn't croak off, I called my wife and said, "Bring me my notebooks," and I wrote 13 Moons. And started in a hospital bed, and then
Wow.
wound up going to a coffee house with a cigar and finishing it up, And it has to do with our moons, not the 12-month calendar, which doesn't make sense. The 13 is actually a natural calendar of every moon that's in a year, and it's down to the minute. So I decided to write the calendar using the things that we do in each moon. Like if we were gathering certain things, if we were doing this, we were doing that, or we were hunting, or we were building houses, whatever, that went on in that. Every moon you had something that you did every year. And so I wrote the chants, basically a story with the chants about each moon. And that became 13 Moons. And then I did it, I recorded it in my house, just with a rattle. And wound up making a CD of it just for myself. Went to, went to the, I guess if people here, we call it parishes.
Yeah.
Other places they call counties, but our parish. And I was at the parish building, and I had it in my CD player, and I was getting ready to leave. And one of the ladies from the culture department for the parish, for the parish president, came by, and she's like, "What is that music? I love it. That chant, man, it's great." I said, "That's just me, And she goes, "Can I have a copy of that?" And I took it out my CD player, and I gave it to her. And totally forgot about it, And I still had the master in my computer. And I guess it was 2010 or something like that. And I get a phone call from the parish president's office, and they said you won Musical Artist of the Year for 2010, I think it was. And interesting year, hospital tie and all that other stuff. And I said, for what? What did I win? Why did I get Musical Artist of the Year? For your album 13 Moons. I said, I have no album 13 Moons, you know? She said, no, you for your album 13 Moons. And plus also being involved with music your whole life and being, you know, the cultural coordinator, Native American coordinator, music coordinator for Jazz Fest. And I said, but I don't have an album 13 Moons. Well, I found out that she took that CD and she was playing it in the government building, and people were listening to it, and they were loving this album, and it became very popular at that in the government office, and they thought it was so great that they said, you know, they were going to give me they didn't know that I had not produced it, so it was funny. I got an award for something I had not produced yet, you know.
Yeah.
And which made me realize I need to maybe do something with this, but didn't know how to do it. Well, they gave me the award, and one of the ladies from the French consulate shows up, and she says, I heard about your 13 Moons album. There's no album, she says, and it's in Mobilian, your native language. And they said Mobilian became a trade language for the French. Very important with the to help the French and natives communicate. They learned the Mobilian language, and it became very important as far as history goes. And you're doing a whole album in that language. Would you be willing to collaborate with some French musicians and do an album here? And I never thought of it. And I said, well, so the guys from France, they said to meet me up on Skype, and we talked. I didn't know too much. I know a little bit of French, and he didn't know a little bit of English, so we had an interpreter, and we talked Skype, and he says, I'd like to take your music that you've recorded, that you've composed, and like to make arrangements in progressive jazz, French. I said, yeah. So I sent him 7 just to see how it would work. He worked on it for a while, sent it back to me. I listened to it. I did some arrangement on it. I sent it back to him. Before we never met. Before you know it, we had these 7 songs arranged with the music and the instruments and everything else and vocals. And they said, we want to try this out to see if it's going to take off. So they said, we're going to send our musicians to New Orleans, and you're going to do a concert in New Orleans, Lafayette, and I think a couple other places to see the reaction. And then if that goes over good, we'll do the other 6 songs and then hopefully make the album. I said, okay. So they sent the guys. I never met them. And we practiced for a couple of days, and then we did a tour. It went great. 7 songs were taken, and people loved it. So they said, give them the other 6 songs. We work on it and finish it up. And then before we do the album, you do a whole concert with all 13 songs in France. We'll give you a tour of France, start in Paris, and we'll go to Montpellier, to this, that, and everything on all over, and see what the French, how they accept it. Well, we did. I went over, stayed in that villa, and we recorded and we rehearsed. We rehearsed for 3 days, and then we went on a almost 3-month tour. And everywhere we went, the place was packed. People were coming to hear my stories, not only the music, but the stories. And then they said, good, we're going to record the album. And we did. So at the time, it went over really well. At the time, we were doing something that had never been done before. And we got to, I think, to Paris. And there was a little, I don't know if you saw the cover of the album.
I remember, yeah.
It has a turtle on it, and which has 13 parts. The turtle represents the 13 moons. Well, that painting was done by a Mohawk lady that was doing an exhibit at the Louvre in Paris at the time. And she sent a message, would you be interested in taking my painting and using it as the cover of your album for 13 Moons?
Wow.
And so she sent the thing, and I went and looked at it, and I said, yeah. And so she gave me the painting to put on my album cover. So Mohawk, Native American Muskogee, and it showed how we looked at the 13 Moons the same in the turtle. Went into the studio, blew it away because we had been at that point been playing the music for almost 4 months. Went in, first shot every song, and finished it up, and brought it back. And they printed a lot of, and there's none left. I mean, they all sold out. The only copies that are known to be in existence are still in Europe, and there's not that many. But they sold out so quick, and the Grammys looked at it, and they were considering it, but they didn't know what category to put us in, and so they said yeah, but we didn't win anything because of the category they put us in, I guess. But at least the Grammys looked at it.
Can I find this on like a streaming service now? 'Cause that's the way to go now.
It is so funny because everything I've ever done, the albums, and I don't know how that's happened, but Worth the Wait, the one with the hand eye on it, and 13 Moons. I was doing some antique work, and I was in the shop, and I put Pandora on, and you get all the songs that fit in. Like I was listening to Yes and some of the stuff, and I'm sitting there listening, and all of a sudden, boom, I hear Turkey Moon. It's like, that's familiar. That's me.
Yeah.
And it's on Pandora. My daughter called me from Ohio. She said she was on TikTok, and all of a sudden my album comes up. And then Spotify, then this. It's all over YouTube.
Wow.
I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And you pull Pandora, and both albums come up together. You see 13 Moons, and you see Worth the Wait. And I'm going, how did that happen?
Yeah.
You know, it's around the world. Everybody's listening to this this album, and one of the songs on the album is Peace A Sobali. That's on the first one. Wrote smoke readings, read the smoke, about the tobacco, light the tobacco, and so it's in my albums, and so now they're everywhere, and which I like. I don't care if I'm making money off of it or anything like that. I just want people to hear it, and that way, people like it and maybe want us to come play, and we just finished Jazz Fest, and we kicked that down. It was great, and we're gonna go in studio very soon, and we're gonna do 45s on vinyl.
Oh, cool.
And we're going to start it off with Stomp Song and Chestnut Moon. And we're going to have a A side, B side. And the first album record's going to be a killer because it's two of our most famous or favorite songs. And then we're going to make consecutive 45s of two songs. And then when we get enough, we're going to turn it into an album. But we're going to spend time on each one of those songs to make sure they're perfectly there and turn it into a 45. And it'll be available in New Orleans, and at certain places and at the Jazz Museum in Holland. But we're talking about doing that, so hopefully that'll be done pretty soon.
And now that the way music distribution has changed via like the streaming platforms, hopefully you can get more distribution.
I think so, and especially after Jazz Fest, and then we've got quite a few concerts online right now that are being watched, and people know the music now, and I never really thought about taking it any farther than I have, but it seems like I'm being forced and a lot of the guys in my group, they're unbelievable people, and we do not start a concert before the cigars lit up behind stage, and we pass the tobacco and do positive before we go on stage.
Yeah.
And blow the smoke out, boom, and then we go up on stage and we kill it, and that's just something that we do, and I know people would go, oh no, they're smoking cigars behind stage, but that's part of our getting together, getting us in a balance, in a spirit to get us ready to go up on stage, that we're going to project a positive image, and that's part of it, burning that cigar and getting us in the right frame,
Yeah.
And shit, I'll lit back that cigar.
I know. Always the origins.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
I know.
I mean, I love this tea, by the way. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about that?
Well, the tea is
Because it's perfect for this cigar.
well, it's made for that cigar. It's made for a cigar. It's funny because one of my favorite hangouts, besides Habana Port, all right,
Shameless plug.
the favorite hangouts is in Covington, called the English Tea Room, and which I visit a lot. I did a lot of artwork there. I do murals and stuff there, and also my teas. But I would go and sit on the front porch, and I'd smoke a cigar, and I'd drink tea. Well, they were asking, they said, there's a certain tea that you like with your cigar. I said, there are 3 teas I like with my cigar. And then he says, why don't we develop a tea that goes perfect with your cigar? When you're smoking your cigar and you drink the tea, and that it just married up perfect. And I thought that was great, because tea is something that, is something that's very, it's a sacred thing too, and it's a very special thing, and a healer, and there are a lot of other ways. And along with the tobacco, it's like, boom, that's a perfect marriage. And so we sat down and we went through the 3 teas that I liked the most. And took us a couple of months and to get the right blend, where when you take a puff of that cigar and then you drink that tea and it's like, wow, it just blows your mind. Or you drink the tea and then take a puff of that cigar, it intensifies the flavor. And because the tea has a very smoky, almost like I guess it's like between a smokehouse and a flower place.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a good way to describe the profile of this tea.
And so we developed the tea, and it became the Grayhawk blend. And the only place you can get that is the English Tea Room in Covington. So if anybody wants that, tea, that's where you get it. At the English Tea Room. Sit down and go get you a cup of that, and then go on the front porch at the Grayhawk table.
Yeah, that's right. Got your table.
And light up a cigar and try it out with a good crumpet, and have a good time. And that worked out good. We've been having that tea for quite a few years now, and so I guess it all comes back to that tobacco and that cigar, and it has become very popular. And even the ladies go, I don't know if I want to try that. Then they try it and they go, wow. So you think it's killer now if you try a cigar with it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you'd really like that. Yeah, we can sit down and talk. You and I we sit down and talk, and we just, basically, it's like skimming the froth off the coffee right now. I mean, because there's just so much.
Oh, we could probably be here another 8 hours.
We haven't even talked about the mounds, and we haven't talked about, we haven't gone down to, our agriculture and our astronomy and our architecture and everything else, that's here in the Southeast, which, there's just so much. And then just how it blends in with a lot of the other cultures that have come to Louisiana, and we need to start thinking about, we talked about that earlier this week about music and about how, some certain cultures have come and made Louisiana or made America who it is, and we always want to zero in on one culture and don't realize that all these cultures coming together have made who we are. And if we let one overpower the rest, then we're not who we're supposed to be. We're supposed to acknowledge every aspect of our culture, and that's everybody. And that's from Native American all the way to anybody that's coming in from anywhere else.
Agreed.
And because we can't forget where we come from, but a lot of people have forgotten that we were first, and everybody else is an immigrant.
Yeah, that's right.
And if we accepted the immigrants, you should accept immigrants, especially if you come from immigrants.
Right.
We need to forget all that hate, and we need to think about what we got in common instead of what we have in difference, because we got more in common than we have in differences, if you think about it. If you sit down and talk to people long enough. And I think that's why I've got friends around the world, because if you sit with people long enough, you will find out you got a lot more in common with each other than you think you do.
Right. Well, I'd love to have you on again in the future. You're always welcome here. So,
well,
again, thanks
I
for coming
appreciate it, man. We've been friends for a long time, and how did we meet? Through cigars, man.
Well, thanks again, man.
All right, brother. In our language,
hey, good luck
we
this
say,
weekend. Have fun this
all
weekend.
right. We say yokuki. That means thank you.
Yokuki.
Yeah.
Yokuki.
And
Awesome.
don't forget Hakshuma tobacco. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you found today's conversation insightful and entertaining. If you enjoyed this episode and want to discover more episodes, check us out at thelifepuro.com or any other major streaming platform. If you're interested about the cigars we smoked, you can visit us at shop.habanaport.com. Until the next cigar, thank you.